Hey guys, it's Tim Miller with the Bulwark, and I'm here with my buddy Andrew Egger. Well, that's not going to work. How am I going to do this? Hey, it's Tim Miller with the Bulwark, and I want to talk about JD Vance's view that we need to ban porn to save families. And so obviously, I've brought in the porn correspondent at the Bulwark, Andrew Egger. What's going on, man?
Oh, hey, so happy to be here.
I want to back up before we get to Andrew. We want to hash this out together because maybe we have a little bit of divergent views on it, but I want to hash out why I think this is such a political issue for JD Vance. First, just to explain what is happening here. There's a Huffington Post article from back during JD's Senate campaign where he talks about how he wants to ban porn to save families. It was pulled from an interview he did with a Catholic magazine. In it, he says, again, we've made a political choice that the freedom to consume pornography was more important than the public goods like marriage and family and happiness. He said, we can't ignore the fact that we made that choice, and we shouldn't shy away from the fact that we can make new choices in the future. Now, to contextualize this, I think this matters politically because there is actually some porn banning happening. Pornhub was disabled in Texas. For the big Pornhub users out there, you probably noticed that because of some efforts by the Republicans in the state there to make the age verification system more onerous. And Pornhub basically just saying, F you, that's fine, we'll just sell our wares in other states. You know something is politically potent when it seeps into bro talk, bro sports talk. Here are my buddies at Pardon My Take over at Barstool talking about JD Vance.
Always, I think there's one maybe in Ohio or
yeah,
maybe,
I think it's JD Vance.
yeah, who's like, we got to get rid of porn. It's like this
All
guy
of it?
fucking sucks.
Yeah,
all of it.
Yeah,
And here they are again talking about JD Vance.
Isn't there a guy who's running in Ohio for like Congress or Senate, and one of his stances is anti-porn? It's like, good luck, buddy.
Oh yeah.
Like that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
You cannot take my porn from me.
No.
Like that will get me into politics.
Come and take it.
Yeah,
I think there are a surprising amount of people who are anti-porn.
But that would get me.
Who's
That would,
saying it?
for the first time in my life, I'd be like politically motivated to like go out and like picket. You can't take my porn. Like,
Yeah.
you could do anything else you want, but porn, no.
All right, Andrew. Before we get to the merits of whether or not we should ban porn, doesn't seem great when sports bros are being like, I hate this sicko. Like that's kind of a key demo for Trump.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because these are sort of like two parts of the new Republican coalition, the MAGA coalition, that usually get along pretty well, which is sort of like the based right-wing Trad Cath types and the Barstool bros, because they're sort of united in disdain for the woke left, for they're kind of anti-LGBT and certainly anti the whole aesthetic package that's attached to that, anti-rainbow flags and anti-Pride Month and anti-Dylan Mulvaney and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the actual policy visions that they want to see implemented in America, it turns out stark disagreements. And this is maybe like as good a one as you could find, because it's sort of like it implicates that sort of like libertarian, don't tell me what to do spirit that's really strong and kind of like the Barstool bros versus the opposite of that in sort of like the Trad Cath element that JD Vance was talking to.
Explain
in that interview.
for some of our viewers, some of our secular Prague viewers. As a cradle Catholic, I know about the Trad Caths, but what is a Trad Cath?
Yeah, so you mentioned that he gave an interview to a Catholic magazine, and not just any Catholic magazine, right? I mean, it's this publication Crisis that really leans into kind of the culture war. It's very much an identity that's developed kind of in antithesis to the sort of like Benedict option-y stuff that you used to hear about a lot on the right, where what we really need to do as faithful believers is sort of disengage from this culture that's getting away from us and kind of hoe our own garden and just sort of preserve our faith. You kind of have this reaction now that no, the culture is going down the tubes, the country is going down the tubes, a bunch of godless paganism is out there, and what we really need to do as sort of the church is mobilize politically and kind of take our country back. And you see that in a lot of different going a lot of different directions, because there's a bunch of different religious sects that are all kind of like on the same page, that if the right were ever to take kind of absolute power, they would all have huge disagreements about, even just among the religious types, about what needs to happen next. But that's kind of the Trad Cath side of this, and that's how we get to the whole porn conversation.
All right, yeah. So before we get to the policy merits of it, I just want you to stick with me here on just the pure politics. Yeah, we're just doing Machiavelli, we're just doing politics, we're just doing winning. And if I'm the Democrats, I look at this and I say, man, like there's this gender gap that people have talked about has become a gender chasm, and the Republicans have played right into the Democratic hands on appealing to women, particularly college educated, but even non-college women, with the childless cat lady stuff.
Basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
Obviously, with the debate around abortion in Roe, just generally the way that women are talked about and treated when the man at the top of the ticket has been found liable for sexual abuse. So the issue, the area where Democrats are struggling is with men, particularly younger men, all races, Black, Hispanic, and younger white men, all trending more towards the Republicans. To me, I just look at this and I'm like, man, the vice presidential candidate wants to ban porn. The guy that is the Speaker of the House has an app where he and his son monitor each other's porn usage, which is very creepy.
My accountability partner right now is Jack, my son, right? And so he's 17. So he and I get a report of all the things that are on our phones or all of our devices once a week. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. I'm proud to tell you my son he's got a clean slate, all right? Yeah.
Donald Trump loves porn. He's the top of the ticket. But can the Democrats, through a paid campaign, freak out enough of these frat bros that are, not really traditionally conservative in any meaningful way, but just from a vibe standpoint are, don't like what is happening on the campus left, on the woke left? Can maybe they just get them to not vote, or maybe even get them over into the Harris camp by talking about how creepy JD Vance and Mike Johnson want to ban your Pornhub, want to be inside your frat room. They want to monitor, whether, somebody can take a morning after pill. Like, that seems like a pretty scary package to a group that has been trending towards Republicans. Might this be a way to offset that?
Yeah. So let me say two things. One is that I do wonder whether, kind of in a vacuum, this would be all that useful, in that this, specifically the porn stuff, would be all that useful for that. Because I do think that there's a lot of young people in America who aren't sure exactly what their relationship should be with, like, pornography, right?
Sure.
Like it's very morally fraught in a lot of ways. And so I don't know if, like, you could sell this like as like a wedge issue that would move a lot of people. But I do think that as part of the bigger push that they are wanting to make against Donald Trump, and specifically that they have an opportunity to make with JD Vance, where it's really just like, man, look at this weird little guy. Look at this kind of like unusual person who makes you kind of uncomfortable. And are you sure you want this weird little guy? Are you sure you want the party of weird little guys to be making these decisions? Because that's the sort of thing that gets people not thinking about the merits of any one of these individual things, but just a question of, okay, if it's going to be the weird little guys in power, should they have more power or less power over how I live my life? And so yeah. In combination of those two things, I think you that's where you start to see a lot of political opportunity. For the
do I want Mike Johnson and JD Vance to have any role in deciding what I Google? Probably not. Particularly when it comes to sexy time, particularly when I'm a frat guy. That's just me. I feel like that's workable. I felt this way for a long time. I think the Democrats should make a bigger push on this. The last time I did a video on this, though, you said to me, no, I'm going to debate you on this. I don't think that this is as potent as you think. And maybe setting aside the political, maybe I'm out of touch as a middle-aged man. I've seen some polls recently that said that high school seniors, like 40% of them, do not drink or smoke or use weed. I'm like, I don't know what's happening out there. Maybe I don't know what's happening with the teens. Maybe this is appealing. So let's talk about the merits of, maybe there's something to be said for having some government limits on porn surfing.
Well, yeah. So this is where I want to like push back on even the stuff I was just saying, where I'm like, do we really want to live in a world where, like, the only way that we beat Donald Trump back in 2024 is by exploiting the debauchery of a bunch of sex crazed 20-year-old fraternity brothers?
Maybe
so
yes,
I don't know about any of that. But I do think it is an interesting conversation, sort of apart from all this political stuff and even apart from Vance, because there is this kind of movement that's happening right now in a lot of, at the state level, in a lot of places, not to talk about banning pornography outright, but to implement some age verification controls on a lot of this stuff. And it's kind of quietly happened without ever really breaking into the national conversation all that much. But 19 states now have passed some form of age verification at the state level, where basically, like you were saying, it varies from state to state. And unlike what you said, I'm actually not our porn correspondent. I'm not super read up on all these different state bills, but the basic thing is, like, if you're going to go to Pornhub or whatever, they're going to ask you to show some ID essentially. Right. And there's a lot of weird kind of different policy implications. A lot of the kind of libertarian types don't like it, both on the merits, and they don't like the privacy concerns. They think it's rife for abuse, basically. If these sites start to like compile pictures of a bunch of people's driver's licenses, that's not a great thing that could leak.
Or some people just, let me defend the libertarians. I have a libertarian streak. I wouldn't say I'm a libertarian, but I have some libertarian sensibilities. Might you want to just monitor porn in incognito mode and not have anybody know that, what type of porn you prefer? Might that just be something between the person and, and their web browser?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that this is why it becomes an interesting conversation when you stop talking about the ban and you start talking, which to be clear, JD has said he'd favor a ban. So maybe we have to have that conversation. But in terms of like the policies that are actually being pushed by a lot of these groups, and that are finding traction in kind of a bipartisan way in a lot of these states, it's specifically the argument is like, okay, like, porn's out there. We don't know if we can really put the genie back in the bottle on this stuff. But also, there's a bunch of totally insanely degrading and degraded stuff happening on a lot of these videos. There's a lot of sex trafficking happening, all that stuff. And so, like, could we at least have a conversation about like putting up barriers to like 13-year-olds venturing onto the internet and basically having like their sexual awakening in this horrifying no limits, no obstacles environment? So that's kind of like where the conversation actually gets interesting, in my opinion.
I don't think 13-year-olds should have porn. I also think that the AI side of this is also concerning. I think that there just are some social costs. There are social costs to everything, but I think that there are significant social costs, in my view, to having a bunch of young men decide that they can have AI girlfriends, and having that limit their how much they encounter with real world women. Let's just be honest. We're mostly talking, this is a boys on boys conversation here. This is not, obviously women watch porn as well, but like the trend towards just becoming obsessive about it, the trend toward, being abusive in the use of it, is we're talking overwhelmingly about young men. And so I do worry about that. And that maybe there should be, some view about, are there ways to regulate it? But I just keep coming back to, isn't that a cultural problem? Isn't that we need to do better about raising young men who can interact with women in the real world, and that really there's no role for Mike Johnson in that conversation?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of merit in that argument. That maybe you just need to have. Well, this is what's so funny, right? Because like you brought up the kind of like the porn. Mike Johnson and his that software that they use and things like that. But I can make the argument to you that
Covenant Eyes.
So Covenant Eyes is the software that we've been using a long time in our household.
Yeah, but isn't that exactly the sort of thing you're mentioning, that they shouldn't be banning this? It should be at kind of like the individual, like family level, or individual response. Like you're not saying that it should be up to the individual responsibility of some knucklehead 14-year-old kid to make their own decisions about whether to get really into pornography, right? Because they're kids, right? And that's the whole argument, is like you need to at the very least like have tools as families to like try to protect your own kids from this stuff, if that's even possible, right? And maybe it's not possible. And then if it's not possible, if you have this horrible social ill and it's really not possible to kind of regulate or even like stem at the individual or the family level, well, then isn't that the kind of thing that public policy is for regulating that sort of thing?
Yeah. I don't know. I think that there is certainly a role for parenting your children and trying to, teach them mores and values that are in line with yours, while also giving them the ability to be free. We both have young children. We're thinking about this, how to balance all this. To me, having a system where you're monitoring each other's internet use and looking for red flags, that feels a little creepy to me, a little overkill, but whatever works in Mike Johnson's family, that's fine. I think that mindset of having somebody that feels like individuals' porn use should be monitored is not really the mindset that I want in the Speaker of the House. And I don't think it's what most of the MAGA frat bros really want in the Speaker of the House.
And let me bring it back around to that, to kind of the politics of it for 1 minute, because I think it is really important. I mean, you can have this kind of policy discussion sort of in a vacuum, but it is very I mean, there's a reason why this has been kind of fruitful at the state level, some of these efforts, more than at the national level. Even setting aside like federalism concerns, it's like at the state level, you can have like somewhat higher trust, you can have like actual coalitional political governance where people are like setting aside all this stuff to whereas at the national level right now, I mean, everything is just so broken and so gross, and you have that I mean, we could talk all day about the sort of like various ways in which the Republican Party has gotten sort of authoritarianism curious, if not like rah-rah cheerleading for it. And in that environment, it's the weird little guy thing again. I mean, it just becomes impossible to have these conversations because you're like me personally, I could be very much in favor of like this legislation in a bunch of places, but it's an impossible sell when you're basically saying like, trust these guys to assume all this additional control and trust these guys to accumulate a bunch more power over what you're doing with every second of every day, and trust them to be responsible with that additional power. So it's a hard conversation to have politically in the current environment, at the very least.
Yeah. All right. Well, I enjoy having it with you. My libertine nature comes in and I'm like, these guys want to ban porn. Fuck these douchebags. And I kind of want to dunk on them and just say, you don't want these weirdos looking at your, deciding what you're into, whatever you're into. I'm actually, after all this, here we are, 17 minutes in. Not a big porn man myself. Have tons of vices though, so I get my backup when people start threatening vices. When JD Vance and his beard and his like chip on his shoulder because he didn't sit at the cool kids table in high school, decides he wants to get involved in my vices. I get very concerned about that. But I appreciate you being an angel on my shoulder, reminding me that we do live in a society. Societies are it's important that as a society, sometimes we monitor our societal ills and try to curb them. There's nothing wrong with that, curbing societal ills.
Yeah, you're right about that. We really do live in a society. So yeah, thanks for talking about it with me.
Smart way to end. All right, guys, this has been Tim's Takes. Subscribe to the feed. I'm going to bring Andrew around anytime a subject involving vices or kind of uncomfortable sexual topics come in, because I like to see them blush. We'll see y'all soon. Hey, if you like this video and our content, I'd love for you to become a Bulwark Plus subscriber. You get access to bonus podcasts, secret podcasts, and newsletters we put out every day, plus some behind the scenes takes that I don't always post on this feed. In addition, you can become part of the Bulwark community. Come over to our Substack and comment and meet other like-minded people. We'd love to have you. Starting today, you can get a free trial at thebulwark.com/free trial. The link is right here on the screen and below in the description. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Come on and give it a free try today.